Gary, moving on to Saturday, we start with a massive Kiwi derby between the Hurricanes and the Chiefs. Of course, big talk about the showdown between Nonu and Sonny-Bill Williams fighting for that All Black spot.
Absolutely, for me, definitely the game of the weekend. It should be fantastic. 1 and 2 in the New Zealand Conference. The two teams that have scored more points on the log than any other two. The Hurricanes, I guess, could afford actually to lose this game. They've got a 14-point lead over the next best conference leader, which equates to practically more than 3 victories, and they only have I think 5 games to play. That Nonu Sonny-Bill Williams matchup that you mentioned, that should be worthy of the price admission at least. They're both vying for that number 12 spot in the All Black squad. Should be fantastic. Difficult to see who to give the edge to there. I think Nonu is having one of his better seasons. He's playing some really good rugby. Interesting that both teams have lost their first choice fly-halves. Now Aaron Cruden for the Chiefs, and then the Hurricanes obviously without Bowden Barrett. James Marshall filled in for Barrett last week. He wasn't too bad. I think he might even have the edge over Damien McKenzie. He's played a little bit at fullback, a little bit at fly-half. He's mixed up with his brother. They're not quite as settled. The Hurricanes team have been pretty impressive this season. Their backline, they've been bolstered by TJ Perinaro back at scrum half, Julian Sevier out on the wing. They've got Corey Jane. They've got Conrad Smith as well. It's a really formidable looking backline, and their forwards have certainly stepped up. Some big performances there. They've been pretty good on defense, and we all know that they can score plenty of tries. So I think at home I'm going to give them the edge. The Chiefs are a little bit more desperate. I think they've got to keep up with their pace-setting neighbours, the Hurricanes. With the Highlanders breathing down their necks, and the Crusaders, even though they've got a bye, also there or thereabouts as well. So it's more important, I'd say, this match for the Chiefs. But I still don't think they're going to be good enough to win it. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. Lots of running rugby, lots of skill on display. But I'm going to go for the home side. I think to eke out a very narrow 3 to 4 point victory.
Okay, Rob. Then the Sharks taking on the Waratahs in the midday kickoff. The Sharks an unchanged side this week, I guess, because the sort of valiant effort they put on in their previous match.
Yes, that's a small mercy for them. They've had so much personnel disruption this season that being able to field the same 15 from one match to another is a little bit of a blessing. And now they've actually got to try and make that count. I still think that there are some weaknesses, though, structural weaknesses in that team, partly because they're missing so many sort of key string pullers in their ranks. I still think that they're missing Pat Lambie quite badly.
Yeah.
And that's made a big difference to their sort of backline play. The one thing you can say is that they did play a slightly more inspiring brand of rugby last weekend when I thought they were desperately unfortunate not to get at least the losing bonus points in Wellington. If anything, I wonder if that hasn't almost demoralised them all over again, because they really threw the kitchen sink at the Hurricanes. As Garen said, the runaway leaders, they were at one stage looking really primed for a big upset and couldn't pull it off. And then, of course, the dubious cherry on top was surrendering a late penalty, which meant they got 0 points out of the match. So what priced them knocking over the Waratahs? The only thing you can say is that the Waratahs are looking a bit shaky at the moment. Awful result for them losing to the Force. That was the double that the Force did over them this season, which is pretty disgraceful really for the defending champions, I'd say. So they ought to come out smoking, the Waratahs. Sadly, I think the Waratahs probably must be considered the favourites. I still think the Sharks are a little bit ponderous in some areas. Their loose forward dynamic, not ideal. I think they could do with sort of a faster, more skillful element among their loose trio, even if the 3 existing players they've got are all sort of decent individuals. But as a combo, maybe there's a little bit of not enough of an emphasis on sort of flair, and muscle is what it's all about. So I'm afraid I have to say Waratahs win.